What do we call this? Bitcoin karaoke box?
We're in a very fancy place in Tokyo.
Very fancy. Very fancy karaoke box.
It's called
In Roppongi.
Kin Studios.
Yeah, it's
Okay, so you wanted to talk about build
building entrepreneurship.
and entrepreneurship on
And
BSV.
why it's like not really easy for someone who's just walking in the door and wants to get into it.
Yeah.
You don't run any BSV businesses.
No, I do not. But I'm really strongly thinking about it, and
What would you call your level of involvement so far? Is it like
voyeur.
a voyeur, a BSV voyeur?
Well, I would say it's research. So due diligence right now, technically.
But you would.
I'm actually trying to. So I sold my companies in America over the last, I guess, 14 months. And although I do have still about 1,000 pounds of weed in Colorado, all my licenses and
We
everything.
just want to clarify that was your business.
Yeah, I was in the cannabis industry for 10 years. I had farms and shops and an infusion center and all of that. So,
Yeah.
all legal, which means they get to take the money and put us through a bunch of extra hoops and stuff.
And that's exactly what they did.
And that's exactly what they did. Yeah.
So you've sold all that now. You've moved back to Japan.
Yep. I love
And
Japan.
you're like, do you have a BSV business idea in mind, or is it just
Yeah,
I wanna
okay,
start something?
first of all, I'm fortunate enough to have a little bit of time, so I don't need to rush into anything. And in doing due diligence, it's really it's a cohesive way to look at the potential upsides and what challenges there are, because you don't want to spend 5 years programming something without revenue. You don't want to blow through cash. You really want to be able to get into revenue really quickly. And yes, you do want to have a viral opportunity. But at the same time, you also really need to get into the money and relatively quickly. And so there were a couple of different thoughts that I had. One of them obviously with the gaming and. Casinos and casino gaming, there's some people that love that, don't get me wrong, but I think that, esports and e-gaming has a huge future potential. And one of the bright spots that I think, having done business, having seen, the cycles, I think building things from the ground up, which is what, Champions TCG and Crypto Fights did. They're beautiful games. They're beautiful in their own right, but it's really hard to build your customer base, your user base. I think taking already established games and giving them the advantages that Bitcoin can bring them, I think that's going to be a much more aggressive way to build an evangelical use case and really get into the millions of users within a couple of months. Now, it's not what I want to do. I have some thoughts about the downside of addictive video gaming, and I actually really do admire what the BSV teams have done in trying to find some Islamic compliant finance. So gambling is a big no, and I'm not saying that I'm against gambling, but I'm just saying for me and myself, I think that there's some much more productive applications, but I know that would be a great way, it would be a great potential business for Bitcoin, is to replace the pay-to-win business model, the gold marks, and where people are playing a game and you get to tilt the board and win by spending $1,000 on gold marks and winning.
See, I gotta confess, like, I'm old. I don't understand the whole, digital game items, pay to play, that kind of thing. Like, I can see the appeal. It's just I'm too old for it. So.
Well,
but the younger people love it.
And not just that. I mean, there's some really good strategy games. There's one that I played. It's called Supremacy 1914, and it's like a World War I game, and you build up, and there's like hundreds of players playing against each other, and you get to use economics. You actually have warfare, and you have diplomacy, and it starts off pretty fair, and it's a beautiful game in my opinion. And leveraging
I do like that.
Leveraging BSV First of all, the data on chain is so cheap right now. If this is something that actually works, because I'm still having a hard time to get any type of technical documentation. I am having a hard time getting any contact back from Enchain or professionals that have built games. So it's pretty hard to do the due diligence, which is the phase I'm in, because it's very unresponsive in regards to the people that do know how to do this stuff.
Yeah, okay. Like I haven't. I mean, that's not really my world, so I haven't experienced life as someone who wants to walk in off the street and, sometimes literally.
Yeah.
And talk to someone about a business idea. Like, what's the process you go through?
So basically, you start off with, for me, I think about something that's competitive. I'm trying to avoid physical goods. I think the world already has tons of physical goods. I also look at the tremendous value of digital performing assets. I know on BSV there was a digital performing assets marketplace, but I think we're 2 or 3 steps we're ahead. It's a little premature to do that. We're putting the cart before the horse, and so I think you need auditable accountancy softwares on BSV that will track transactions and allow you to purchase stuff, but also compliantly file which types of business expenditures these were. And that's actually a business that I'm most optimistic to try to create the framework for. But the first concept for me is, what do I really think is a good business idea? Okay, like I said, I think that convincing the pay-to-win business model games to put it onto BSV and actually create a financial incentivization to win versus, requiring somebody to tilt the table and pay to win. I think that's actually a really good idea, and I think a lot of these pay-to-win games are actually really good games. Mm-hmm. And I think even on other networks, I know on Cardano there's a game that some of my friends are really interested in. It's Cornucopia, and they got really good graphics. So it's not just on BSV that you have Champions TCG or Crypto Fights or these other games, but I think this actually is a budding sector. And when you think about the cost of a basketball facility or a football stadium and the real estate and the staff, it's so competitive to think about the opportunity for esports. So I think about what are these kind of budding industries, and then how do we use these competitive advantages that we have to get to market really quick, have low costs, and really outcompete the competition. So, like I said, beating pay to win I think is a great idea. As I do this due diligence here, I hope I can make some more contacts with people that can help bring this stuff to life. I'm not sure that that's going to be something that I'm going to lead, but what I'm very interested in is an accountancy software. Leaving the U.S. and coming to Japan, I look around here and I know that there are high taxes and for high earners, but for regular Joes and Janes or regular Japanese people around here, they don't really tax the working poor the way that they absolutely hammer the American poor.
Yeah.
And I think that's beautiful. It makes for a much safer country. And so I'm really passionate about tax avoidance. Coming out of America, I just think it's insane. I mean, we paid 75% tax on gross in the cannabis industry. Mm-hmm. And then you have payroll tax, and then you have the employees getting income tax. So there's really nothing left. The velocity of capital has collapsed.
Yeah.
And so the only way around that is to build your own company and use business expenses. But I mean, have you ever done this? I mean, are you good at keeping paperwork and filing taxes and dealing with all of that, or is it a complete pain in the ass?
No, I absolutely hate all of that stuff.
Yeah, is that one of the main reasons why you wouldn't want to start a business?
It's one of them, yeah.
So, increasing the ease of doing that, I think is really well suited to be on BSV. Mm-hmm. And, for a lot of Americans, they can write off 75% of their expenditures as pre-tax expenditures. Additionally, the companies can save 20% or more of their payroll taxes. So for the companies, not for all industries, but sales, programmers, content producers, video editing, all sorts of different industries. There's a real opportunity. Plus the people that already have a business. We had to pay $350 an hour for accountants, and I went through 5 accountants in the 10 years I ran my companies because they freaking suck. They really do. They try to get these underlings that suck at what they do, that don't really know much about business, and this is not rocket science, And so I think that an application along those lines could be extremely beneficial for not only onboarding people into the BSV ecosystem, but leveraging the data on chain, if this is even possible. And like I said, as I've inquired on how to do this, and to find the people that have already worked with putting data on chain or software on chain, it's been extremely difficult. And so, I know hackathons or something like that would be great, but a place to sit down and look at a well thought out business model to figure out the systems architecture and say, okay, well, this is how it's going to go, and there's also the concern voiced by a brilliant friend of mine in Tokyo, who said that with Terranode there could be major changes to the way that things are working. So some of the big BSV based companies and softwares are concerned that Craig Wright said we need stability so people can build on it. Well, are we going to have stability? So we're facing some questions here. And where do we store the data, and are there people, if it's not, always deployable, if there's pruning, or if there's some other issue where that data is not going to just be living on, the global blockchain that you can pull from and read from, how do we actually guaranteeably and consistently be able to keep this data for 5, 10, or indefinitely, years? If we're going to build an advantageous accountancy software that can start off just by keeping track of business expenses and automatically file for you, and keep all these things compliant, wouldn't be totally automated, but storing the data at minimum for 5 years, if not indefinitely, is going to be a critical step for that. So what do you think about that? What do you think about the data on chain? I mean, isn't that a huge deal to you too, or?
Yeah, well, I mean, people always assume that it's always going to be there, and then you hear something about pruning. So, I mean, the answer to that was always that if there was a demand for the data to stay there forever, then special services would exist to make sure that happened.
Yeah.
I mean, it can be saved forever. It's just it's not 100% guaranteed, I think. I mean, I hope I'm not wrong on that.
To me, that's the biggest value of BSV. I think that data on chain and indefinite auditability it's an idea of our age. I mean, that is as big of an idea as electricity or flight, and what's empowered by that would be huge. So like I said, as I do this due diligence, these are the answers I seek to find, and from there, I wouldn't even approach to raise capital if I don't know how this system's going to work. I wouldn't even, put my own money into anything unless, I know exactly what our entire track and trajectory to getting to revenue is. You don't, start throwing money around and wasting time and money when, we don't know the answers to these questions, and the people that, we hope would support to do this, they're AFK, so.
So we're not talking about looking for investors here. So you're talking from a technical point of view. Like, you just want some guarantees about how things work, how things will change, or how things won't change, and what experiences have you had trying to get that information from people so far?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, reaching out to the people that have already built things. That's one thing, just using my own, network of people. Using people, who are in BSV associated groups, if it's, through CoinGeek contacts of mine, through nChain directly. Like I said, I sent emails to nChain a few weeks ago, no response, there's no phone number. I actually went to London and knocked on the door at nChain. they said, you know, you have to have a meeting. You can't just show up. Okay, well, cool. Well, respond to my email. You know what I mean? And so, I just am looking for some way to further explore these capacities because I would love to be an evangelical, not just business developer of my own, you know, entrepreneurial ideas, but to blow the horn and really get people building.
Have you tried to contact anyone at the BSVA?
No,
BSV
I know, you know,
Association.
when we spoke about that with some of our contacts here, you know, they were also having a lot of challenges with the BSVA. So that wasn't recommended as a path. So.
I mean, I take it you know people at the BSVA.
I do not. Do you? You guys were talking about that.
Yeah, it's a few around.
I would just say this. I'm not trying
to know someone. Right?
I'm not trying to put anybody down. All I'm saying is that I would love to see some resources. I would love to be able to, almost as a systems integrator. I think, you know, if we look at how much, you know, Air Ventures or, you know, how much different people have invested in time or, you know, I know other entrepreneurs here in Japan who are putting their own capital, specifically Ken Sato from Yenpoint. I just think that, you know, asking people to risk their time, treasure, and, you know, energies and really their reputations as well, I think we need a real systems integrator type of capacity. You know, coming from, you know, different software distribution channels in New York and whatever many years ago, systems integrators really are the decision makers for all of the production work that happens. And so, you know, does BSV need an FTI or an Accenture or whatever? I'm not sure. I think those people are a little pricey and a little bit, you know, maybe that's not the right solution, but, you know, maybe BSV does need its own systems integration capacity where, you know, they don't give everybody all the time in the world and, you know, chase every wild goose that's out there. But I think that, you know, having the programmers and you know, systems architects and those types of resources, I think would help tremendously.
Yeah.
And if I did have to pay, yeah, sure. If it's, you know, whatever, it's like a lawyer. $300 an hour, cool. I'll come with all my questions. You know, we'll pay you. We'll get the info and the answers, and we'll go from there. I'm not even saying it needs to be free, but I'm just saying that we do need those types of resources to be able to build.
Yeah, I guess the way, you know, Bitcoin and blockchain and all that sort of stuff has worked in the past is just if you go to the meetups, you go to the conferences, you just eventually get to know people, and somehow like that morphs into you knowing all the right people to talk to. But
sure,
not everyone does that.
Well, and I do that. And I know, you know, dozens of BSVers. I know tons of people across the entire crypto space, and multiple different, you know, enthusiasts and whatever. I was originally actually into Ethereum back when it was, you know, whatever, 2017 or whatever. But I obviously saw the shortcomings of the technology. But, you know, something like the Ethereum Alliance obviously would be nice, or, you know, those types of things would be nice. But I think in reality, it really does come down to a couple of elite people who get shit done. And, you know, I was commenting too, I thought David Case was brilliant, and, you know, he was doing over half of the transactions on all blockchains combined. You know, there are superstars that work with BSV for sure. But I would like a little bit more clarity, because different people that I know who are launching into BSV have very different things to say about where the data is stored and how this actually is going to work. And, you know, NFTs on chain is great. Show us how to do that, and show that so that me and, you know, some systems architects and some other people can actually get a business plan going, you know. And so, and if we even can, you know, get some, you know, some support, you know, like I said, beating the pay to win business model. Some of these games have millions of users. You know, rather than building everything from square one, taking existing games and existing communities and better serving them, it would be really nice among a bunch of other potential projects. But, you know, we really need some help on, you know, where to put the data. And maybe we were waiting on Terranode. Maybe we're waiting on the network to mature.
Yeah.
You know?
I think to an extent we are waiting for Terranode,
Okay.
just because I mean I was gonna say it's gonna change everything, and like the whole point is that it doesn't change everything.
Yeah,
it just
exactly.
Makes it just makes it a lot faster. However, there's a lot of people who are just waiting around just to see how that works out first.
In December I saw 182,000 transactions on BSV for 8 cents. And the implications of that for data on chain is huge. And the hope of putting software code on chain, the hope of these microtransactions. I don't know that we need to scale it 1,000x instead of helping some of these. For example, like I said, an accountancy software. There's a lot of digital performing assets. Even if you're not going to put the videos on BSV, you're going to use more traditional hosting. The assets, the distributions, the cost of business, and just running those pieces compliantly is absolutely already viable. And so, are we going to be putting, petabytes worth of videos onto the blockchain? I don't know. And I know Calvin last year at the New Year's announcement mentioned row 8 and the hopes to do the videos on BSV, and I also share that optimism because YouTube takes 96% of ad revenue. To over 20x the value of that media content. Man, that could be an avalanche for bringing content onto the blockchain and into the BSV economy. But maybe that's not, maybe we're not ready for that yet.
Yeah, I personally think that's more of a 5-10 years thing.
Yeah. Well, maybe it is, but
figure out
I'll just say that for the digital performing tokens, I know that they built the marketplace, and one of the criticisms was that there were no assets on it. And I know that maybe the videos may not be ready for the blockchain yet, and video is the heaviest form of data you could potentially look for. But accounting tracking is one of the lightest forms of data you could put onto the blockchain, and so I think that's totally viable. And I think that even running some of these games, without video, without even some of the graphic data, I mean, which already can work. The pictures and stuff is no problem, but just the game impacting moves and stuff onto the blockchain, I think that's already feasible and viable. So I know that there are people that are really excited about Champions TCG and that potential. It's not my genre that I've ever been interested in, but I respect what they're doing.
Yeah.
And so, Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a place for everything, really. It's just good to know, it's good for people to know what they can do.
Yeah, and I just think, physics, business is like physics. You need to draw a straight line if you're going to gain momentum. Yeah. If you go off and do all these, you build a YouTube, Facebook, Google thing with Skype capacity, you're going to get lost in the field and you're going to end up getting no revenues and losing time and money. And so being able to very clearly define your track and drive and be in revenues within 3 to 6 months, that's the only way that I'm going to really be able to do something on BSV. And until then, maybe we'll just wait for next year, wait for 5 years, or wait for 10 years. But if it is time to build, let's fucking build. You know what I mean? So that's what I'd hope to do.
Well, I hope you got the reply to that email.
Well, thank you.
At least then you'll have a starting point. That's what you need. You just need that. I don't know, what do you call it? I was going to call it a concierge, but it's no. That's
well, and I know that they were trying to do that
entry
too. So, on the Unchained website or on CoinGeek and stuff like that, they tried to have that academy and how things work and how to do this. But it's still fairly incomplete. And even for technical documents and stuff like that, let's get them done. Like I said, I went to London. They claim to have 200 employees there. Let's see some technical documents. You know what I mean? I'd love to see some more functional stuff like that. And if there is anybody out there that wants to get in touch with me, then please do. I'd love to. I would love to help this dream become a reality. I really agree with a lot of the things that Calvin and Craig are doing, and I will never say a bad thing about Craig. I'm not going to swallow the bullshit of ad hominem attacks, and I really like trying to build and trying to use rather than just, prove that he was the original founder. I think that, if this is all going to work the way that we hope, this, like I said, this could be the biggest tech of our current age, in the middle of AI innovation, in the middle of all these things. Blockchain could be such a huge impact in so many directions. So that's what I hope for.